If you're going to change the way you behave, you must change the way you think. And one of the best ways to change the way that you think is by changing what you consume. Gentlemen, if you've been struggling with breaking free from your pornography addiction, yes, you must understand that you must stop consuming pornography. But what are the things that you should be consuming? Obviously, listening to podcasts like this, The Rebuilt Man, listening to The Superman Life, and many other great podcasts out there are going to play a big role in giving you the tools and the thought patterns that are necessary to break free from your addiction. But what about the books that you read? What about the information that you consume outside of podcasts, outside of the radio? So, in today's episode of The Rebuilt Man, I want to share with you the 4 books that I believe will help you in breaking free, overcoming your pornography addiction, and becoming the man that you were born and created to be. You know, books have fundamentally changed my life. I remember back 20 years when I first got my first sales position, picking up the books from the greats like Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Art of Persuasion. This is the first time in my life that things really clicked for me. I wasn't a big reader growing up and going through school. I did the bare minimum. But I realized that inside of books were information that, if taken and applied, could change the trajectory of my life. I became instantly hooked. And over the last 20 years, I've probably consumed somewhere near 800 to 1,000 books. Many of the greats, your Think and Grow Riches, your Awaken the Giant from Within, your 12 Rules for Life, and many books that very few people know about as well. It's a big part of what we do in preparation for the Superman Life podcast. Is if the author is coming on the show, we want to read the book that we're going to discuss and talk about. So when I decided to finally quit porn back in 2019, reading wasn't something that I was lacking. I was building a fitness online company. I was building marketing agencies. So I was consuming loads and loads of business material, marketing information, sales, persuasion, funnels, messaging, brand building, storytelling, copywriting. But when I shifted my focus to start to read books that were going to help me in becoming the man that I needed to be in order to break free from my addiction, that's when things really began to come together. So these 4 books laid a foundation for my recovery. These 4 books lay a foundation for our Reboot Your Life program. And they're books that at this point, close to 900 men that have gone through our program have read and succeeded in doing so. The first book that I believe is going to help you break free from your pornography addiction is Surfing for God by Michael John Cusick. I've talked a lot about the role that Michael played in my life and in my recovery. It was a podcast with him and a mentor of mine. That was the first time I heard 2 grown men discussing their shame and their struggles with pornography addiction. It inspired me to go get the book. And the book spoke to me like nothing else. I felt like I was reading my story. This is exactly the same thing I've heard from hundreds of men that have gone through our course and program, is what Michael outlines and entails in this story of his struggles, the shame that he felt, of the guilt. But then once he got on the other side, the pure freedom, grace, and joy that he experienced in life. Surfing for God, Michael John Cusick. There's a powerful quote in the book from G.K. Chesterton. When a man knocks on a brothel door, he is knocking for God. When we go to the internet and we type in the little site that we're going to visit, we're searching to fill a hole inside of our hearts that can only be filled with the love of God. And having that revelation was so empowering to me. And I believe if you read Michael John Cusick's Surfing for God, you'll get a lot of the same insights as well. The second book that played a massive role, and I had the big copy here, but it's Wired for Intimacy by Dr. William Struthers. I remember it was Drew Boa, host of the Husband Material, the first time I interviewed and had him on the podcast, shared with me what he learned from this book. Said, I need to jump all in. I need to see what it's all about. What I love about the work here with Struthers is he's integrated faith and science. Throughout the book, he'll have quotes of scripture, but it's deep and there's depth in the scientific references, in the neural programming of our brains, and why men are more susceptible to falling into addiction than women. So it gives you an insight into how our brains are wired, but also real-time tools to get back control of those things, to get back control of our life, to conquer this addiction. Wired for Intimacy by Michael John Cusick, the second book that I believe will play a fundamental role in helping you transcend this addiction in your life. The third book, we had her on the podcast, Dr. Anna Lemke, Dopamine Nation. For those of you that are not familiar with Dr. Anna Lemke, she's Stanford's director of addiction for the last 25 years. Her research, her clinical work, her professing has played a groundbreaking role in understanding the science of dopamine, the balance between the good and the bad, the gremlins, as she talks about in the book, how they'll hop from one side to the other. So when you overload yourself with pleasure, you pull that lever too hard, you give yourself massive spikes of dopamine on the pleasure side. The byproduct will be an occurrence of pain, pain with negative intrusive thoughts, pain with feelings of isolation or hopelessness. She talks about the importance of a 30-day detox and some tips to help you get there. There's real anecdotal stories. And what I love about the book is her vulnerability. She opens it up with a story about her struggles with erotica novels. And I think that there's hope for all of us in hearing that, because here's a woman, one of the leading researchers in the world on neuroscience, understands addiction like nobody else. But due to her paying clear attention to what she was doing, she fell into the trap. It's incredibly empowering. The fourth book is the one that is going to help you change your habits from the ground up. And it's James Clear, Atomic Habits. I've talked a lot about this book on the podcast. I've talked about it on multiple social media posts. I believe it's the number one book on habit change in the world. But more importantly, from the habit building exercise that you're going to go through, it's how we should set goals in our life. James does a very good outline of understanding the difference between outcome-based goals, I want to quit porn, versus process-based goals. What must I do to live a porn-free life? Say that again. Outcome, I want to quit porn. Process, what must I do to live a porn-free life? When you focus your goals, when you set your goals on what must be done on a day-to-day basis versus what am I chasing, it makes winning a whole lot easier, because you only need to win one day. The outcome could be months, years down the road. He also talks about the importance of starting small. He had a client that needed to lose hundreds of pounds, and his primary goal every single day for 6 months was to go to the gym, drive there, walk in, walk out. Don't even want you to lift a weight. But over the course of 6 months, he developed the habit and the pattern of just showing up for himself. This is why they say start with one push-up. This is why they say start with one act of gratitude. Because once you build that momentum and you start winning, it's a whole lot easier to stay consistent. Recap those one more time, guys. Surfing for God by Michael John Cusick. Wired for Intimacy by William Struthers. Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke. James Clear, Atomic Habits. We'll have all that linked down there in the show notes for you guys as well, with the resources to go ahead and get these books if it's something you're looking to jump on board. I'm a guy that likes to read the hard physical book. Like, I'm actually a fan of reading physical books, but I'll do an audio at the same time. So I'm kind of consuming it multiple ways. Guys, if you're getting value out of these episodes, you can support us in two ways. First off, leave us a 5-star rating here on Apple or wherever you're listening to the episode. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If there's a guy in your life that's going through some of these struggles, do us a favor, do them the blessing by sharing today's episode with him. Guys, if you're ready to take the plunge, if you're ready to step out in faith and begin to do what's necessary in your life to quit porn and build the life that you know you were born to live, we're offering a massive discount on our Reboot Your Life program. The same program that over 800 men, the same program that includes these books in them. It's $99 today, guys. Completely risk-free. I'll link it down there in the show notes below. I'll link it down there on YouTube. But I love you guys. Hope you're getting value out of these episodes. Make sure to subscribe, rate, review, comment down there below. Coach Frank Rich, a Rebuilt Man. We love you. We'll see you in the next one.